Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin, as we always do, with public audience. Who would like to speak tonight? Susan.
Good evening, Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. I'm here for two reasons tonight. So my first reason is it is the Grange Electronic Recycling event on May 12th, and I believe this is the last Board of Selectmen meeting before this electronic recycling event. So I brought my little flyer. It's also on the website for the Simsbury Grange. You basically have anything with a plug, as well as old VCR tapes, any kind of media, stereo systems, any computer stuff. We'll take any of that. We're having it at Andy's again from 9 to 12 on Saturday morning. Troop 76 will be helping us again, so you can drive up and have a polite scout, take your stuff. And we request a $10 donation, but it's optional, and you can bring as much stuff as you want to. So that is my first point. My second point is I'm here on behalf of Keep the Woods, asking you to support option B for the Onion Mountain management plan. So I'd just like to say that we're not against management of our forests. We haven't complained or made any calls or anything about any of the state projects that have gone on or any of the other clear cuts or any projects in town. We have a particular interest in our town forests, in special habitats, in core forests, and in clean drinking water. We also believe that some areas can be left alone. A forest can manage itself as a natural ecosystem. We would still, of course, need to keep track of public safety, erosion, siltation, invasives, and other problems, and keep an eye on that. But we need to define those areas, and the only areas we have that control over are our town-owned forests. So I think this is something we should really take seriously as a stewardship responsibility and a legacy for people who donated these forests for conservation and recreation. If conservation is the goal of these forests, we should really consult an ecologist and bring together all the available data that we have about those forests, the deeds, the available biodiversity databases, the special additional surveys that were done in the Ethel Walker Woods. Some of that information is probably here. It might be at the school. It might be at the Trust for Public Land. We've really never pulled that information together to make those decisions. So really, a forest is the natural state of New England. Our forests are still recovering from deforestation. And this is really a positive opportunity for the town to be a leader once again. And so, once again, I would like to ask you to support option B so we can consider Onion Mountain in the context of our overall town open space master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Susan, are those T-shirts available for sale?
No? I could special order one for you. Would you like both, or which one would you like?
Oh, I'm not going to give up, Mike. Which one? I don't want it swayed. I just say.
All right.
Who else would like to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Diane Nash, 5 Berrywood. Tonight, my goal really is to communicate to the public at large that often does not listen to or tune into the conservation meetings because mostly they don't have public audience. So tonight in public audience, I want to read to SCTV and all the others that tune into the Board of Selectmen's meeting, the 3 paragraphs that the Conservation Commission, when they made the recommendation, were not the focus of their recommendation, yet there was a good deal of discussion at their meeting that some people felt this was the more important message contained in these last 3 paragraphs. So I read them into public audience tonight. They read as follows. The Commission has devoted months to discussing forest stewardship and hearing from interested members of the public, we reached the clear consensus that whatever subsequent forest management plans the town considers implementing should be informed by input from the public and from a broad base of spectrum of experts. From our own experience, we don't expect that to be easy because they will be hampered in part by the absence of predefined goals. For our purposes as a commission, we agreed on several goals: to encourage conservation of soil, water, and cultural resources while improving forest and ecosystem health and wildlife habitat, to encourage locating and structuring recreational and other uses such that they will be consistent with conservation objectives, and to encourage maintaining environmentally sensitive areas as reserves, permitting only limited human impact. And then they add, however, we are only an advisory body, and our goals have no more weight than anyone else. There is an active debate as to whether a forest is better dealt with by active management or non-intervention, except what is needed for public safety. Assessing a proposed plan for a given parcel might draw on a myriad of data about the land, its living organisms, and its place in the context of other town forests, and the region as well. We will differ both about the sufficiency and implications of the data. There are those who believe that these discussions cannot properly begin until the town reaches a philosophical understanding of its purpose in owning and conserving forest land. As a commission, we were not able to reach that agreement, but on a broader discussion, you might build towards public consensus and facilitate subsequent forest stewardship. The Selectmen should consider incorporating such a discussion into the anticipated open space master plan. Absent such a broad public discussion, consideration of subsequent forest stewardship would likely be mired in controversy. So I read those three important paragraphs to you that the Conservation Commission said. We vote narrowly on this management plan, that there's nothing wrong with it, but when they say we're just 4 people, and why you would consider such a narrow-based suggestion to go forward when you have a public that strongly differs on how best to manage. They also say that all other studies should involve the public and be part of the master plan. So why we would exclude Onion Mountain from the master plan for all our forests doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So I urge you to vote for option B and open all of the options for the management of our forests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Marjorie?
Read that envelope. It's close. Marjorie.
Good evening. My name is Marjorie Winters, 111 Old Farms Road. I have served on the Conservation Commission since 2001, and I'm currently serving as their chair. And for the record, I was one of the dissenting votes on the approval for the Onion Forest Mountain Management Plan. But I'm here to speak tonight as a resident of Simsbury. I feel that we have put the cart before the horse in regard to the town's forest management plans. The Onion Mountain Plan was professionally done by a highly reputable forester, and the plan reflects by and large the goals stated in the RFP. The suggested management plans have been standard for many years. However, the town put the cart before the horse when the RFP was written, specifically Goal 8, which specified that the funds from any timber harvest might be available to improve the use of the forest through trail development, educational signage, and invasive plant removal. Prior to the development of the RFP, the town should have had a discussion whether this is the best way to fund any maintenance or management of the town's open space, forested open space. It should be asked whether other open spaces and recreational areas are required to pay for themselves. Income from such limited logging expected on Onion Mountain is only expected to raise a few $1,000s, if not $10,000 in a 10-year period. Will this income from the timber harvest actually be credited to these expenses? Is this income even sufficient to do these things? And is it worth the impacts that would be caused even by the limited logging activities using best management practices? The town put the cart before the horse by not reviewing the language in the deeds for the town's forested properties prior to drafting of the RFP. The deeds specifically specified that the properties were purchased or acquired for conservation and wildlife. Logging, however limited, is not mentioned in these deeds. The town put the cart before the horse by not soliciting public input on the management plans for the forested property. The residents of Simsbury have voted in favor of the purchase of these properties and have supported it with their tax dollars. They deserve a say in the future of these lands. The town has put the cart before the horse by not considering the development of the town's forested property in relationship to the management of the other adjacent and nearby privately owned and state-owned forest properties. Considerable logging already occurs in Simsbury's forest, which helps the age diversity of our local forest as a whole. The town should consider whether the town forested properties might be set aside to develop into old-growth forests. This type of forest habitat is very rare in Connecticut, and it would increase the habitat diversity of the town. Such forests would require minimal maintenance rather than active management. Nature will do that. The town will put the cart before the horse if logging operations commence before invasive plant removal is completed. Removal of invasive plants from our forest properties should be a high priority, and it is considered to be the best forest management practice to do so before any logging activity is started. However, your Onion Mountain property is adjacent to many residential properties that are planted with many of the non-native invasive plants that are finding their way into the forest. As removal of invasive plants is an expensive, time-consuming, and ongoing process, it would serve the town well to also develop an educational program that encourages homeowners to be part of the process of improving our forest by removing these invasive plants from their own yards, so as to help minimize the needs to weed the forest in the future. As far as work on a much slower time frame than even our planning processes, I feel we have time to think through our goals for our forested properties more thoroughly. There has been a great deal of change in forest management strategies even over the past few years since the current management plans were written, and I believe the town would benefit greatly from a re-examination and clarification of the goals set forth in the existing management plans, the inclusion of other expert opinions, specifically forest ecologists on our forest properties, as well as the involvement of the public in these important decisions. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marjorie. Joan.
Thank you. Joan Coe, 26 Whitcomb Drive. On Tuesday, May 1st, Simsbury residents will be voting on a referendum that will determine the increases in taxes. This year, the Board of Finance has come ill-prepared to vet the submitted budgets and use the phone hookup to vote on gimmicky $96,518,369 budget approval. It appears that the Board of Finance is unqualified to forward budgets that are fiscally responsible. With fewer people volunteering for boards and commissions, the brain trust of Simsbury has disappeared. All 4 questions on the referendum vote should be voted down to allow the Board of Finance to reconfigure the budget needs of Simsbury, eliminating political patronage. having a $23,985,820 for the renovation of Henry James School before completing a feasibility study with decreasing enrollment is irresponsible and should be voted down. Omissions on operating expenditures with the expansion. All money taken from the general fund for capital expenditures will increase future budgets. Your ballot should reflect your distaste for an irresponsible increase in taxes with an increase in home and car assessments with a no vote, as seen in the sample ballot. And here's the sample ballot, and I helped you vote with all the noes. The Economic Development Work Group, assembled on Tuesday, April 17, 2018, recommended that an ordinance be developed. The Charter Revision Commission voted in a 10-to-1 vote to eliminate the Economic Development Commission. It states, quote, "The current commission has been ineffective in its current form. The commission agreed to add the responsibility of economic development to the job responsibilities of the town manager," end quote. Selectman Cheryl Cook spent the time of the workshop to champion her friend Kristen Barnett from the defunct Economic Development Commission as the savior of economic development, and Tom Frank, who has appointed himself to various boards and commissions as the most knowledgeable person in all of Simsbury. Sarah Nielsen, Executive Director of Main Street Partnership, gave positive comments. The meeting highlighted the reason why the Economic Development Commission was ineffective with these personalities on the commission. Under Section 1545, membership of the Bloomfield Economic Commission ordinance states, and I quote, "The Economic Development Commission shall consist of 7 members appointed by the town manager, provided, however, no members of town council shall serve on said commission," end quote. This model should be adopted by Simsbury. The town manager is the sole appointee for membership in the commission. The Open Space Committee, according to Section 615 of the Charter, states, quote, "The Board of Selectmen shall appoint an Open Space Committee to assist and advise the Board of Selectmen in identifying and evaluating land deemed suitable for acquisition and preservation," end quote. There is nothing in the Charter giving the forest management to the commission. Therefore, all the members must come before the Board of Selectmen individually, without the authority of the Open Space Commission. During the budget process, the Simsbury Volunteer Ambulance Association asked and was approved for a budget submission of $80,000 by the Board of Selectmen, although I had alerted them that AMR should replace Simsbury Volunteer Ambulance Association. These were my remarks on November 27, 2017 meeting. Quote, "I question whether Simsbury Ambulance Association should ask for money to continue their service when Mike Delahanty is receiving a salary of $141,788 and assets of $1,669,448 according to their tax filing. Over the years, there's been an increase in volume for ambulance services. Occasionally, there's time delay, several calls for an ambulance, and prioritization of services required when Granby and Canton cannot supply the services because volunteers are not available or another call. Simsbury Police and first responders and do report to the incident in a timely manner. Since it is difficult to find volunteers for services and volume has increased, I would like to have AMR come before the Board of Selectmen to discuss an overview of their services. AMR is used by Avon on Farmington with paid staff. According to Brandon Robertson, Avon Town Manager, AMR has a good response time. There are no complaints and they do not receive any money from the town. AMR only requires a building supplied by the town for equipment," end quote. I would once again suggest the Board of Selectmen have a representative from AMR come before the board to discuss their services to various towns and commissions. I have reviewed Jamie Rabbit's personnel file and many omissions that the town manager, Maria Caprioli, will try to produce. Jamie Rabbit is Director of Planning and Community Development. There were no personal action forms, permission for out-of-office trips and conventions, comp time approvals, verified complaints from staff of inappropriate conduct, and no performance evaluations. I urge everyone to go to the referendum vote on May 1st to vote no on all of the budgets. With only 6% of the residents voting, your no will count. And all of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter at Joan Co., Newsfeed on Facebook, and Simsbury Forum Topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Yes, thank you. I'm generally trying to go left to right tonight.
Hi, Joanne Perry, representing Gifts of Love Farm and Education Center, formerly Community Farm of Simsbury. We did a name change last fall, and most people in town still know us as Community Farm, and it is a community farm. We love our partnership with the town, and we're excited about what's happening this spring. So a couple of things affecting the town, I just want to give you some updates, is our educators have been in the classrooms working with the first graders here in Simsbury, doing the life cycle of a plant. And they've had their 2 classroom visits, they've planted seedlings, and they have their field trips scheduled, and they'll be out at the farm over the next 5 weeks, planting those, some of them going in the ground, some of them in the greenhouse to grow a little bit further. So we're excited about what's happening there. We hired a new farmer in January. He has a great plan to really keep our organic status, and really just a 4-year plan on how to best cultivate the soil and keep it as strong. That's the biggest asset of the farm, is actually the soil out there. So we are excited about the plan there and what's happening. If you've driven up Walcott Road, the fields look great with the soil turned over right now. We're direct seeding. If you have a chance to stop by, our greenhouse is just overflowing with seedlings, all sizes. So it's really an exciting time to be on the farm, and it's just going to get even more so with each passing day. So we also have a bunch of activities coming up and events that are Gifts of Love is the beneficiary of, partnering with wonderful businesses here in the town. So one of them coming up is May 4th, the Maple Tree Charity Golf Tournament. We're the beneficiaries of that, so we're excited about that and excited about this first-time partnership with them. Walk Against Hunger is actually with Food Share, and Food Share is our biggest partner. We're one of their partners. We purchase our food for our food pantry through them. Every dollar we spend gets about $9 worth of food through their services. So we support them with this walk. So it's open to the general public. It's Walk Against Hunger, May 5th, and we're taking off from the Yard Goat Stadium in Hartford on that Saturday morning. We also will be at the Makers Fair that Saturday morning at Simsbury Public Library with tons of other vendors. We're excited about that happening. Also, on May 17th, they're come and dine and taste the best of Farmington Valley restaurants. In Farmington, they are doing the Taste of Farmington for the Farmington Valley, and that's an event that Healing Meals and Gifts of Love are the beneficiary of. And then my best friend's 5K road race is sponsored by the Shepherd of the Hills Church, which is right around the corner from the farm. And their goal with the funds that they raise with that race is to provide scholarships for students to attend our summer camp. And our motto at our summer camp is Getting Dirty with a Purpose. The kids love it. They learn about farming, they learn about nutrition, they learn about animal care. They just get dirty, they have fun, and often will try food and vegetables that they never thought they would any other time, and their parents are thrilled. And we're excited about having that produce, hopefully by the middle of June, for not only Simsbury Social Services, but our food pantry as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kalishman.
Robert Kalishman, Simsbury. Thank you for allowing me to appear before the board and to speak. And I'll get to my main subject. But in view of what I just heard, I'd like to remind you, you've forgotten the purpose. This Gifts of Love or Simsbury Farm, that's the poor farm. That farm is left to the unfortunates of Simsbury. That farm was found by a Civil War major by the name of Eno, who came back and he saw all these Civil War veterans that in those days they had no psychiatrist. They drank. A lot of them didn't have legs, a lot of them didn't have arms. Never with that mini ball. But the point I'm trying to make, and I don't want to miss my point, is that poor farm is for the poor of Simsbury. How we get into Gifts of Love with all these things and the vegetables, I don't know, they're not vegetables. And the Attorney General of Connecticut was supposed to come up with an opinion about what was going on over there. And what you've done, you've missed the purpose that the Eno farm, that's Eno's property. And that property is left to the poor. That's not left to the wealthy to have a party and to have a dinner and get a grant from it used to be Miss Kelly, the Hartford Foundation for Giving. This belongs to the poor of Simsbury, and you're forgetting the purpose of it. And I lost my trend, but that's not what I came to speak about. Should tolerate for time, but now, on the board meeting of 23 April 2017, there was a meeting held, and after the meeting, there was a question whether or not this board was called into executive session. And I happened to be leaving the building, and I noticed Ms. Coe had mentioned that they wouldn't let anybody into the meeting, and Tom Cook was standing at the door, and he had only allowed the board members, Board of Selectmen people, and personnel associated with what was ever going to go on in that meeting. And I looked at it, and I was under the impression that it was never mentioned at the meeting that they were going into executive session. And it became a question. I filed a complaint with the Freedom of Information Commission. The respondent was the Board of Selectmen, Town of Simsbury. And it was discussed. At the time, I objected because the evidence was being offered after the fact. In other words, we sat at the meeting. I was not given the courtesy of what the defense or the respondents were going to present. I had no idea. I was given a sack of paper and asked if I approved of it. I disapproved of it, and consequently, they went on with the hearing. When they went on with the affidavits, I objected because at that point, the affidavits were after the fact. And it went on and back, and it started in 2017, and I think in a day or so, it's going to be 1 year. Now, the thing I'm here for is, you all know I've come to the meeting religiously. Once in a while, due to circumstances, I can't make it, but I come religiously and I attend the meetings. And never have I ever seen an agenda with the Freedom of Information Commission. And I personally feel that this is a cheap shot made by our new town manager, who's supposed to serve apolitical. Apolitical means non-political. You're not one party, you're not the other party, you're not the in-between party.
Mr. Cashman,
You don't
about
have a
minute
party.
left.
And I'm losing my time, and I'm going to have to adjourn. But the point is, it never happened. It shouldn't happen. I should be given the courtesy. I'm not ashamed what went on there. But I just think, in view of the fact that a Democrat was on the personnel board that selected our town manager, and there's a conflict, and she's publishing something that she's in conflict to, because that secret meeting was about her, who they were going to suggest. Ask him, he's there, Mr. Kelly. And then it went down one Democrat after the other Democrat. And then the town lawyer, he's also a Democrat. He's not the influential Democrat, but the fellow by the name of Peter Kelly, who's an honor for Connecticut because he was the national treasurer of the Democratic Party, the National Committee. It's an honor. Mr. Kelly's an honor for Connecticut. But there's where the clout comes in. And that's another Democrat. And I'm not paranoid.
Thank you, Mr. Cashman.
Because if you think I'm paranoid, write the government and tell me I'll get a pension out of it, because I'm paranoid about time.
Would anyone else like to speak in public audience tonight? Yes, please.
Sue Brockwitz, 10 Pinecrest Drive. I hope you all got my email regarding the Onion Mountain Management Plan. I urge you to not proceed with this logging plan for reasons including forest health, biodiversity, and the value of intact forest to Simsbury. Regarding forest health, if a forest is to be used largely to generate income, then forest health would be judged mostly by size, straightness, and fast growth of the trees, and by forest conditions that produce as many of them as quickly as possible. Thus, we find in our current forest management plans a great deal of logging, as well as regular thinning, so remaining trees grow faster, removing groups of poor quality trees, so that is less commercially desirable, and releasing some desired trees from competition by logging all around them. These procedures would recur every few years. Commercial timber sales would occur every 15 to 20 years. While these actions might be a means to generate income, and it is not certain that they would, they are totally inappropriate to a forest for which the protection and preservation of biodiversity is important, and in which forest health should be judged very differently. Because a forest is not just a tree garden, it is a network of an enormous number and variety of species, most of which are very small and largely unseen by the casual observer. Many of them live in a thick decomposing layer of forest soil. They are the essential support system for larger creatures, including birds and mammals. Although crucial to the function of the ecosystem as a whole, these tiny invertebrates and plants and fungi and microorganisms are easily and usually ignored. But a healthy forest isn't possible without them. Protecting species means protecting the structural and functional integrity of the complete network of which they are a part, that is, the whole forest community. Logging causes serious disruption of this network, for example, by removing nutrients and organic matter, by causing erosion, by the machinery which compacts the soil so plants can't root effectively, by creating openings that attract invasive organisms, by altering microclimates on the forest floor, which affects the organisms that forage and live there, including the microorganisms at the base of the whole ecosystem, by causing fragmentation that disrupts migration and gene flow between populations of the species, decreasing the resilience of the species and its ability to adapt to changes in the environment, and much more. Besides the obvious visible damage, there is much more harm that is not readily seen. Even when a forest may appear to be healing, much of the damage remains for years or decades. Soundscape recordings taken before and after selective logging showed that many species in the unlogged forest had disappeared and not returned even over the next 2 decades. This shows us an aspect of forest complexity that most of us aren't even aware of. David Perry, professor of ecosystem studies, has written, "Complexity is complex, and the workings of nature are still poorly understood. Understanding the level of ignorance underpinning our land management decisions is in itself an important kind of knowledge that defines the bounds of prudent action." When a forest is managed by humans, it reflects the intentions and preferences and knowledge of the managers, as does a garden. But when a forest is allowed to manage itself, it grows and develops within the interconnected network of ongoing natural processes that evolved over millions of years. It manages itself better than humans can with our short time frame and incomplete understanding. Some of the advantages of having our town forests preserved and protected from logging are the opportunity to compare them with state logged forests, to evaluate the impact of human activities, and to see how both kinds of forest respond to climate change. Also, the protection of species that do not thrive in managed forest by preserving better habitat which increases their reproduction and genetic diversity. Also, the preservation of a rich source of individuals to recolonize habitats depleted by human or natural causes. The proposed management plan implies that we can have our forest and eat it too. As we all know, this doesn't work with cake, and it doesn't work with forest either. Every one of our town forests contributes more to the quality of life in Simsbury as an intact, unlogged forest than it would as an impoverished woodlot. As development continues relentlessly around us, it will become harder and harder to set aside wild forest land, but it will become more and more important to have done so. An intact forest is an invaluable refuge for all of us and for generations to come, and for all the wild things that are part of that vibrant web of forest life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in public audience? Diana?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Diana Moody, Simsbury, Connecticut. I'm going to make it very easy because I'm really here to concur and to support what my esteemed friends, Marjorie, Diane, Susan and Sue, that because I think their message was very clear and well said. And I support option B for forest management. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Is there anybody else I'm missing? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, just your name and your address.
I don't come to these things. Richard O'Connor, 76 West Mountain. The neighbors in our community just found out about the Onion Mountain plans literally 10 minutes ago at school from another neighbor who said, "Hey, aren't you guys going to the meeting?" I'm like, "What meeting?" And like most of us, we don't have time to go to these things. We're busy going to school stuff. So just for the record, if you could you please, in the future, I guess, give us a little better notice. It would have been nice if we got maybe some type of letter or a knock on the door from the town just to let us know what's going on, literally across the street from me. We weren't able to read the 171-page PDF, but there was something about a parking lot expansion, and I know we're concerned about that because if you rip out the trees, it would look aesthetically unpleasing. So I guess if you choose to do it, I guess that's the decision you're making. Could you please gather the neighbors in our community just to make sure that the aesthetics and the traffic trucks and all that is managed properly? Because we were given no notice. So, I mean, many of us don't have any opinion on it because no one told us. And in fact, we were going to call the town because some of the trees in there are unsafe for camping and the kids. The last storm, we took a walk through there yesterday with the dogs and we're like, oh, this is kind of unsafe. So if whatever you decide, if you wouldn't mind, send someone in there to look at some of the trees. Some of the limbs are split. There also seems to be some disagreement with the fishermen there. They think they own the pond and chase the kids out. But I think they just own the fishing rights. Is that correct?
We'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
Clarify that, or maybe put that on the town website about the use of the park. If it's open to all, then it's open to all. If the fishermen have rights to the fishing, I'm fine with not fishing. They paid for the fish. But they shouldn't be yelling at kids and chasing them out of the park and putting up a gate or something in their parking lot. That's it. I'll let you-
Thank you very much.
Carry on.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else tonight? Yes, Don.
Donald Rieger, 9 Stodmore Road. I make no pretense to expertise in forestry matters. I am at best a diligent amateur at this, but we try hard and study what we can. And, you know, I'm very sensitive to the points that have been made about the complexity of the forest and so forth. I'm concerned because I have a sense of the limitation of resources that you folks have available to deal with these sorts of things, and a sense of how long it takes to get things done. I think the Onion Mountain Plan is very important to carry out. And I'd like to make the point first that it's, in fact, quite a limited plan. It really is not about large-scale logging. Most of the area of the Onion Mountain Park is untouched by any kind of forestry activities. We let a land trust hike in there right after the trees were marked. And all the folks on the hike were impressed with how few trees were actually signaled for cutting. So it's quite a limited activity that's proposed. And it's not motivated by raising money through logging sales. It's motivated by forest health. And, you know, there are, as Sue has said, there are lots of elements to this, but I'd ask you to focus on the resilience of the forest. Because these are tough times to be a forest. You got droughts, you got climate change, you got woolly adelgids, you got emerald ash borers, you got emerald wilt. There are lots of things that are threatening the forest. And if we want a resilient forest that will stand up to predators, and we don't know what the next foreign bug is going to be coming down the road, we should be working now on the resilience of the forest. And as in your community, and as in your investment portfolio, diversity is the hallmark of a resilient situation. And quite a lot of the motivation for the Onion Mountain Plan is to heighten diversity on the mountain. So think of two kinds of diversity. First is age diversity. Most of Connecticut was all cut down at the same time for charcoaling. And so our forests tend to be kind of all of one age, and we're only kind of working now towards a multi-age stand. Part of the motivation for some of the cutting to be done at Onion Mountain is to increase the age diversity, so that you don't have just a whole stand of octogenarian trees of all the same kind sitting there waiting for the next bug to kill them all at the same time. And then by species. The plan focuses on several species of trees that are relatively uncommon on the property. And it wants to open the canopy over those and foster their growth so that there will be more different kinds of trees. So when that next bug comes down the road or climate change worsens in some way, you'll have a more resilient forest to deal with that. So as much as one would like to have all the information one could have, mount all the experts that one could want, I don't think we have the time or the resources to do that. I think this plan at Onion Mountain is a limited one that serves a good purpose in fostering forest health. And I would commend it to you.
Thank
And if
you.
you have questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in public audience? Okay, with that, we'll move on to presentations. We've got one presentation tonight, and it is in relation to the fact that May is National Bike Month. We'll have a brief presentation by the Simsbury Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee about what's on tap. But before we get to that, I wanted to see if I could have a motion to authorize myself, Eric Wellman, to execute the Bike Month proclamation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So with that, can I bring up members of the committee, and I will share this proclamation.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
wanna
so much. We have a place for that.
Grab it. Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
They framed it this
They
year.
framed it.
Very nice.
It's lovely.
There, thank you. Where's the camera? Oh, okay. Bike month. First of all, thank you for signing the proclamation and making the time for us on the agenda. We know how jammed it is this time of year. But with the good weather and the calendar of May 1st, it signals Bike Month in Simsbury. And I think this is probably the 8th year that we have celebrated this. And the reason I know that is because starting May 1st, we mark the 8th season of Simsbury Free Bike, which is our bike share located in Simsbury. We now have 10 locations located along the trail, and we have 3 new locations this year. And not trailside, they're actually apartment complexes in Simsbury, which sort of demonstrates the confidence that a lot of these businesses have in the safety of our connectivity from their sites down to the center of town and where a lot of those people are riding. And probably the most noteworthy new location for Simsbury Free Bike is the town of Cheshire, which is south of Farmington. And this is a town that aspires to be like a Simsbury when it comes to being bicycle friendly. And they're starting with a bike share. So they've come and they've worked with our mechanics, they've done some fundraising on their own, and essentially they're launching a bike share May 1st. They'll have about a dozen bikes at a trailside location, and we're happy to help them with all of that because we've been really wanting to have what we have here up in the northern end of the trail, start to blossom down at the southern end of the trail. As you probably know, a lot of those gaps are starting to be filled. The new bridge is completed in Farmington, so you can now get from Farmington into Plainville. Plainville has completed their design for their section of the trail. We'll eventually have that trail going from New Haven all the way to Massachusetts. It's a fabulous place for attracting people into Simsbury. And, this whole bike initiative that we do, it's for the health and vitality of the town, it's certainly for economic development and tourism. And I think that a lot of people, now that we've been doing this for this many years, are beginning to really see the impact of attracting people to town, new residents, businesses coming to town. Hopefully, we have a new bike manufacturer in town, by the way, Trikes, and we have a new bike shop coming into town. So it does have a certain economic impact. We also have a bike month calendar that we'll go through very briefly. Deb, Diana, and I will hit on a couple of things. I mentioned Simsbury Free Bike. On the 3rd, we are inviting all of you to another one of our wonderful bike rides in town. We had a pretty full house last year, I think. If you don't have bikes, we can arrange for that. That's at 5:30 on the 3rd. You're going to talk about Maker Fair? We'll be at the Maker Fair too, because we make bikes.
And just one more note about the Board of Selectmen. For those of you who have never done it before, we do have 3 newcomers this year, and it really is a lot of fun, including a police escort. So it's quite a little VIP gathering. And then we end it with Jay Foster's ice cream. So we do hope that you'll join us and anybody else.
And the
that would like
community
to
is
come.
welcome. I mean, anyone
Yes,
from the
anybody,
community.
mhm.
It's
on the trail, too. It's not
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's all on the
It's
trail.
pretty easy.
The
ride,
police
very
escort's there
easy.
so we don't hurt ourselves, so.
Yeah.
We've had some injuries in the
Which
past.
happens anyway. but-
I'll just talk about the triathlon, which is on May 20th. We're always looking for volunteers. There's a bike component to that. The people from Free Bike do all the volunteer work and the safety on the trail. Let's see what else. That's pretty much my spiel. I think Diana has some things she's going to talk about.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, as a lot of you know, we're really trying to encourage more businesses to become a bicycle-friendly business. We now have 2. We have the Bicycle Seller. We have Mitchell, who is the only gold bicycle-friendly business in the country as an auto dealer. So we're really quite proud of that. You'll hear more about that later. And now I'm also working with Trikes / camp /
Adaptive cycling.
who is the person who has the bicycle manufacturing business here in Simsbury. And he is also the only business in the country that builds adaptive bicycling. So it's really quite an honor to have him here. So that will be our 3rd bicycle-friendly business, so watch for that as well. And again, it encourages everybody. And we're not just building a bicycle-friendly community, we're really building a better community for everybody. So we're doing a lot for you as the community at large.
Great, well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to May 3rd and getting some ice cream and, of course, riding a bike. I haven't done that in a few years.
Well, it's like riding a bike.
It is, that's what they say, isn't it? But seriously, you hit on these things, economic development, health and wellness, and just
Yes.
making Simsbury such a special place. Thank you for all of your work.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a few things.
Oh,
The
yes,
schools-
yes.
the schools are very involved.
Yes, this is important.
I know some of you've heard this already, but for the community as well, I want to invite all of you to participate in the 4th Annual Simsbury Bike Challenge, which is a fun and free program for bicyclists to log their bike rides. It's for ages 16 and up. It's part of the National Bike Challenge. And basically, it's a program to encourage people to bike for all the good reasons that we associate with biking. So for fitness, for green transportation, for fun. New this year, it's only the month of May, so if you are interested, please sign up as soon as possible because we want you ready to roll and start logging rides on May 1st, and you can register at nationalbikechallenge.org. You can also learn more about our Simsbury Bike Challenge component of that national challenge at our website, which is www.simsbury.bike. I also wanted to mention some of the educational opportunities that will be happening this month in regards to bike safety, because that is actually a very important piece of
Bike Month, and part of our outreach for the education actually is aimed at motorists, so that motorists know how to interact safely with bicyclists on the road. In terms of dealing with bike safety for bicyclists, we have a lot going on in the schools. We have bike education in PE class in 2 elementary schools this spring. We are going to have bike to school days or bike walk to school days actually at 3 elementary schools. That'll be Tooten, Latimer, and Squadron Line. And those are fun events. It gives kids the opportunity to ride to school in groups with adults who can provide some guidance and instruction and model safe cycling. I invite the board, I invite our new manager to please come to an event. If you've never been, they are a lot of fun just to see lots of kids. You can choose to bike in with a group of students, you can walk with a group of students, or you can just greet kids at the entrance of the school. And finally, I want to mention that we have a couple classes that will be happening at Simsbury Public Library. There'll be a teen bike maintenance and safety class through the teen program. There's an adult maintenance and repair class at the end of the month, and that's something that we do every year. It's very popular, so for people who don't really feel comfortable changing a flat, go to that class because you'll know how to do it at the end. And finally, we have a strongly recommended smart cycling class. It's an 8-hour program. It will actually be in June. It's being offered through Parks and Rec. But it is a class that we recommend for all cyclists, so even the people who feel like they know what they're doing, if they haven't ever taken an actual bike safety class, we will go through what the actual laws are for state of Connecticut and provide guidance on how to minimize risk of being involved in a crash. All of our events, you can find out more on our website, simsbury.bike.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Bike to Work, Friday the 18th.
18th,
So
right?
hopefully we'll see you on bikes
I'll
down
be
in
there.
Iron Horse.
I'll be there.
Adults, something for adults.
And the weather's finally beginning to
And
behave
happy
itself,
hour.
so
Happy
thank
hour
goodness.
at the Redstone Club
Right.
at 5 o'clock.
All right. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Moving on to the first Selectmen's report. May is not only National Bike Month, it's also the month of our budget referendum. It's scheduled for May 1st for the budget that takes effect July 1st. You'll be voting on 4 items, including the Board of Selectmen's budget, Board of Education budget, the capital improvement plan, and the Henry James Phase 3 renovations. And I strongly encourage you to spend just a little bit of time reviewing what's included in these spending plans and then come out and vote on May 1st. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or any member of the Board of Selectmen or Board of Education if it pertains to the schools. And a mailer with a concise summary of what you'll be voting on should be hitting mailboxes as we speak. I got mine over the weekend. I'd like to welcome our new police chief and congratulate Nick Bolter, who was appointed unanimously by the Board of Selectmen as Simsbury's next chief. While he's new to the role, he's certainly not new to Simsbury. His official swearing in is going to be on May 14th at 4:30 p.m. here in Town Hall. And I'd like to thank the Police Commission and our town manager for all of their work leading this competitive process. I had some stuff to say on National Bike Month. That'll be in my written one that's sent out via email, but I won't repeat it right now. Our next hazardous waste collection is Saturday, June 9th, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Simsbury Public Works Facility, 66 Town Forest Road. We continue to accept nominations for the Hometown Hero Award. If you know of someone in our community who's done something to make this community a better place to live, please submit their name, and you can find the form on our town website. The deadline is 9 a.m. on April 30th. I'm told we've only gotten a couple of submissions, and this town is full of amazing people doing amazing things. So please send us their names so we can consider them. And that's my report. Maria?
Thank you. So I'd like to just offer a few additional comments regarding our budget referendum. Staff has, in fact, put together the budget mailer, and that is being mailed to all properties in town. We have also coordinated a number of public communications to promote the budget referendum date. You might have seen the sandwich boards that have started to go up around town. We'll be working with our departments on social media posts, so those departments, that have Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts, we'll be notifying folks of the budget referendum through those accounts as well. And we've reached out to SCTV about using their slides that show when they don't have programming on air to help promote it. We also have a Board of Finance meeting scheduled. It would be a special meeting for them Tuesday, May 1st at 8:15. That would be following the budget referendum. And they would either set the mill rate or refer the budgets back to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed, dependent upon the outcome of the referendum. But again, that's planned for 8:15 on May 1st. The Economic Development Work Group had its first meeting just last week, and they have set 2 special meetings to obtain feedback from the public regarding the yet-to-be-developed Economic Development Commission ordinance. One of those meetings has been scheduled for May 14th, which will be held at 7:30 in the morning here in the main meeting room of Town Hall. And for that particular public comment, we're encouraging members of advisory committees, elected bodies, and nonprofit agencies to attend and comment. A second meeting, special meeting, has been scheduled for May 30th. That will also be held at 7:30 a.m. here in the main meeting room of Town Hall. And for that particular session, members of the business community are encouraged to attend. Staff is currently working on communication pieces that will inform the public of these opportunities for their feedback. For departmental news and notes, for planning and development, work continues on the hazard mitigation plan update. You may recall we did have a presentation from CROG on that plan update back in February. They are holding a series of informational sessions, and one will be held here in Simsbury on Tuesday, May 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Simsbury Public Library. That will be an opportunity for our residents and local workers to learn about the plan, ask questions, and provide input to CROG. Also from Planning and Development, we received notification from the Office of the State Traffic Administration that the state of Connecticut has issued a certificate for the Ridge at Talcott Mountain. That was a remaining critical piece of the permitting process that we needed to receive in order for the building department to issue building permits for that lot. And this is the former Hartford Insurance property that's currently owned by the Silverman Group. So the building department has issued some, but not all of the building permits. We do anticipate that we will be able to fully release the remaining building permits shortly. We are currently estimating, based on the building permits that have been submitted, that the work will reflect over $30 million in new construction value, and we have currently received over $400,000 in building permit fees for those particular projects. On May 1st, the Social Services Department will be able to begin accepting applications for the Renters Rebate Program. They will be able to accept applications through October 1st. Applicants must be at least 65 years of age or be totally disabled. There are a number of eligibility criteria that individuals do need to meet, and information regarding that program can be obtained by contacting our social services staff. From the Town Manager's Office, updates on our leadership team recruitments. The first round of interviews for Director of Culture, Parks, and Recreation occurred today, and I want to thank members Cheryl Cook and Chris Peterson for their assistance with those interviews. I know it was a long day, but I'm very grateful to you for your assistance with those. Finalists will be brought back for a second round of interviews in May. We are still conducting the recruitment for Finance Director. We had a second round of interviewing that just occurred this past Friday, April 20th. We just received notification from Aquarian Water Company that they will be cleaning water mains in Simsbury from Tuesday, May 1st through Wednesday, May 23rd. They wanted us to let folks know that you may see some discoloration in your water if the mains are being cleaned in your area. They will have a schedule posted on their website of the work that will be done, and information regarding how you can look up if your neighborhood will have water mains being cleaned is provided in my manager's report, and we will also have information on our website as well. A number of special events to highlight. The Planet Our Forest and Championship Trees is being held this Thursday, April 26th. The regional forum will be at the Simsbury Public Library Program Room. The formal presentation begins at 7 p.m. The sponsors are asking for RSVPs. You can RSVP to Helen Peterson, and her contact information is provided in the report. There will be a volunteer expo at the Simsbury Public Library on Saturday, April 28th from 10 a.m. to noon. 28 local organizations which use volunteer support will be present in recruiting potential new volunteers. The Simsbury Mini Maker Fair is being held this, Saturday, May 5th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Simsbury Public Library. There will be talents and skills of over 35 tinkers and entrepreneurs of all ages represented at the fair. I know this is an event that the library is particularly proud of, and I hope folks will be able to join us for that event. And our first selectman did mention our swearing-in ceremony for Chief Bolter, scheduled right now for May 14th at 4:30 p.m. We did have a location change because we are anticipating somewhat of a large crowd. So we were able to acquire meeting space at Ena Memorial Hall in the auditorium for that event. So we will be moving to that location, and we will note the location change for folks on the website. And lastly, we have a retirement celebration recognizing Jerry Toner and his 36 years of valuable, dedicated service to our community. He will be retiring on June 1st. We have a retirement celebration planned in his honor for Wednesday, May 16th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. at Maple Tree Cafe. All are welcome to attend. Those who would like to attend can RSVP to staff in our Culture, Parks, and Recreation Department. The cost is $20 per person to attend, and the RSVP information is included in the report.
Thank you, Maria. A lot going on in
Yes.
town. Okay, let's move on to selectmen actions. The first is tax refund requests. Is there a motion effective April 23rd of 2018 to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $2,963.43 and authorize town manager Maria Capriola to execute the tax refunds?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. Item B is Historic Documents Preservation Grant. So each year, the town clerk has the opportunity to apply for a grant through the Connecticut State Library, and it's a grant that we've applied for and received in the past. And this year, since our population has grown, we now qualify for a grant of up to $6,500. So is there a motion effective April 23rd, 2018, to submit a fiscal year 18-19 historic documents grant application and authorize town manager Maria Capriola to execute the grant application? Further move to designate town clerk Erica Butler as the designated applicant.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that passes unanimously. Is there a motion to accept the fiscal year 18-19 historic documents grant, should it be awarded to the town, and to authorize town manager Maria Capriola and town clerk Erica Butler as the designated applicant to execute all documents related to the grant award?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Item C is the Onion Mountain Forest Management Plan. So at its March 6th meeting, the Conservation Commission voted 4-2 in favor of recommending to the Board of Selectmen that the Onion Mountain Forest Management Plan be resuscitated. The commission also recommended public education and engagement as part of the process. So in our packets, staff lays out two primary options. One would be accepting the recommendation to move forward with the timber harvest. The other would be to take no action at this time, and a couple of reasons cited. One is the staffing change happening at the head of Department of Culture, Parks, and Rec. The other is the RFQ process for open space master planning that we're about to engage on. Before I open it up for conversation, Maria, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Just that if option B is selected by the Board of Selectmen, we would still continue to remove trees that provided a hazard, or if they were diseased or had been infested by pests. So we currently do remove trees under those circumstances and would still continue to do so, even if we did not proceed with the timber harvest.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? I'll tell you that I'm personally in favor of option B. Basically, given the two reasons cited, we're about to begin a master planning process, and I think that there's a sort of an unanswered philosophical question in this town, which is sort of what's the proper role as far as having sort of the debate between active management and and passive management. And, this was a plan that was developed by a forester, and there are other perspectives to that an ecologist might have that could be different. And I think as part of the master planning process, I would love to have a community conversation and come to a consensus on that question to inform other forest management activities.
I agree. I think that the world evolves and learning evolves. We've all experienced that. My kids come home and try to show me how to do math homework, and I'm completely lost. I was not a good math. Maybe I shouldn't say this. We just had the board of finance. Maybe I say no. I was not a good math student as a student, and so clearly math changed from the way you taught it and learned it 20 years ago, or 30 years ago to today. So I am a big proponent of us potentially taking this opportunity as a pause and having somebody else's input if the methodology and thought process and treatment is an evolving science and process. And if nothing changes, and then we move forward. But we take a little bit of more knowledge from whatever the current thinking is and learnings are to be an informed organization and move forward with that. And then what that decision may entail, maybe moving back to Plan A, possibly. But I'm in favor of hearing what's new.
I agree. I think this has been a long-term process, and I understand that people come and go from town, and not everybody is riveted by our meetings all the time. But this has been going on for quite some time, and over the last 5 years since we first started discussing sort of the active management, yes, philosophies have changed, and we have sort of solidified our desire to do some centralized planning. So in light of that, and that we are going to have a director change at the top of this decision-making process, I think I would vote for option B.
Eric, I would support option B for all of the reasons that people commented. I do want to put into the context, though, what my support of it is. Relative to the issue of active management versus non-intervention. So I do and have in the past bought into the principles of active intentional management. For me, goals such as maintaining diversity, goals of sustainability, dealing with pestilence and disease, dealing with invasive species, wanting to create and facilitate some of the stands consistent with the health of the forests, wanting to ensure appropriateness of water. These are all goals, for example, that are part and parcel of the plan that was submitted for Onion Mountain. So I am an advocate that if you care about managing those things, you are a de facto interventionist and someone that believes in management. I consider consideration of wanting to have some natural growth areas to be part of a plan that is part of active management. And I think one of the wise reasons for putting off movement on this plan at this point is I do think that there's an increasing interest of really thinking deeply about where we leave our forests natural versus where we don't. I've looked at this process and spent a considerable amount of time based on the feedback, and I think the whole conversation has been a very intellectually driven, very intelligent, and very respectful and inclusive discussion. I've spent a lot of time contemplating, does my own belief in active, intentional management, do I change that at this point or not? I've spent time going back to the studies. I've looked at the tape of every Conservation Commission meeting that has reviewed this issue. I've looked at all the letters that have come in, and I've done a fair amount of research online as to what some of the current practices are, and I've re-walked every trail on Onion Mountain. And the conclusion I've come to is that I still do believe in active, intentional management, but what we are doing is taking a look at what the best practices of that is going to be for Simsbury. I think there's a very legitimate point. Let's do this within the context of a larger open space development. And let's do it in a way that we have a much deeper consensus relative to what our objectives are. And I also really buy into a couple of emails today really spoke to the fact that we are a town that can do this in a way that we could have the most interesting, creative, and dynamic plan that's out there and provide incredible stewardship to our woods. So I know I'm going on a little bit here, but I just want to make it really clear that my reason for deferring action on this, and by the way, option B actually is an active intentional management plan, because we would still make interventions relative to safety, and we would still make interventions relative to disease. Those are two active management interventions. So, with that said, I want to just reiterate that I support the option B, but within the context not of rejecting active management, but refining it and implementing it with the best practice going forward. So,
Thanks, Chris.
Sean?
I agree with everything Chris just said, and he said it much better than I would. My only point to add to that is, I think this is the third or fourth time this board has talked about it since I've been on it, and I struggle with this because for the last 7 years, there's been a number of residents that have challenged us on communication. Please continue to help us with that. These meetings are on TV. I know they're not very exciting, as Sherry articulated, but we do post reports from the town manager, from the first select person. The prior first select people have done these. There are notices. Those ribbons have been up there, I believe, since 2015. We are not hiding anything. We are not trying to keep this from the public, but much like the budget referendum, which is going to get 8% or 9% or a very frustrating percentage, important issues in this town continue to get overlooked most of the time until it's too late, and we can all help with that. So those folks that are engaged on one side of the issue or the other, please do continue to educate your friends and neighbors. Ask them to come to this forum, ask them to write us. We do read your emails. Chris does a very eloquent job of responding for all of us, but the rest of us do read them. There's just no better way to say it than what he responds with, or what Eric does. But please continue to help us with that, because one of the things that I've struggled with in this seat for 7 years is the frustration of the gentleman that came in earlier, and he's absolutely right. It's hard when you hear about it at the last minute at a meeting and everybody's busy, but we can all help to continue to get that information out there, because none of this is done in secret. None of this is done in special meetings behind closed doors. It's all done right here. And again, I agree with deferring to option B, but option A was approved after several meetings, a forestry presentation, conservation committee meetings, et cetera, et cetera. I know because I was here and I approved it. So again, I'm very willing to reconsider that view, but again, as I stated, we have an obligation as a public body. When we take on ownership of this land and other lands, we have an obligation to protect not only the land, but the people that use it. And sometimes that does force us to be active, because if a tree falls down, if somebody gets hurt, that's on us. And I know it's remote, but it does happen. And with storms and everything else, we have to make sure that we're protecting all of us that decided to purchase this land. So,
Thank you.
Just add one thing. I just want to thank the folks who repeatedly have come in here with an impassioned message, regardless if I agree with all the things that you believe in and you say, regardless of what organization you're representing. But this is a good example of why we are the town that we are, and why we're the country we are, and the community we are, because we have a voice and we come together and we share and the good and the bad, the painful and the difficult. So I thank all of you. This is an interesting issue here that's in front of us. Is something about our land and in our community, and there's people here who are deeply concerned and committed to creating awareness. And as an example, as a counter to that, we have a budget process where we had two people who come to public forum and to talk about a $96 million vote. So I would encourage everybody who's out there to be involved and to come help us learn more and be better stewards of your community, like this organization has committed itself to empowering us with knowledge.
Thanks, Chris. And I wanted to just piggyback and also thank the Conservation Commission, because there's just multiple meetings, a lot of discussion. And then you wrote us a letter that I thought was very thoughtful, that really expressing the 4-2 nature of the vote, and that not everybody agreed, and I appreciate that. With that, is there any other discussion?
I would just encourage people to actually read the capital plan that you're voting on, if hopefully you do decide to vote, because there are things in the capital plan that relate to conservation issues and public spaces and how we're going to spend money to manage those, and you should be a part of that. And I very do much appreciate all of you have come in and written and called and all that, because it is very important, and I hope you will all continue to do so.
Is there a motion, effective April 23rd, 2018, to take no action on the Onion Mountain Forest Management Plan and timber harvest at this time?
Just a matter of procedure, should we be moving to table option A versus taking a motion to do nothing? Just from a parliamentary standpoint, is it possible to move to do nothing?
We could table option A. Why don't I reframe that? Yeah, is there a motion to table option A, which calls for proceeding with the Onion Mountain Forest Management Plan?
So I move to table option A.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously.
Good job, Sean. Look at that.
Moving on to item D, which is a Gifts of Love grant application. So Gifts of Love is seeking grant funds to pay for construction of a new well to improve irrigation for the community farm. The town, of course, owns that property, so if the grant application is successful and the well is built, then the town would own the well. Anything you would add to that, Maria?
Sure. So that's correct. We would become the owners of the asset because we are in fact the owners of the property. If they were to receive funding to install this well, that would be used for irrigation purposes. However, we would not be responsible for administering the grant. We would not be the fiduciary for the grant. That, in fact, would be Gifts of Love. What the grant application process requires would be a letter of support from the town in support of the grant application. So they would need that from us in order to proceed with the grant. In terms of looking ahead and speaking with our Director of Public Works, we would have some very, very nominal maintenance costs in the future, again, if we were to essentially obtain that asset.
I didn't realize that we had speakers to this issue here. Tom and Joanne?
You want to start off, or?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having us here, and thank you once again for our partnership. You just did a wonderful job, Maria, about saying why we are here. We are looking to submit a grant to the USDA for the farmland restoration, which would allow us to put a well on the east side of the property. So it's the right-hand road as you come up from Route 10 202. Where the majority of our cultivated fields are over there. It will allow us to increase the amount of cultivation and to irrigate. Right now, the capacity of the existing well, which is on the farmhouse side and actually covers the rental property of the town, there has a somewhat limited capacity for us to be able to also use it to irrigate on the opposite side of the road. So with these funds available through the USDA for this particular grant, we had some specialists out there from NRCS and the Yukon that came out to walk the property with us and look at us, and really felt that that would be a really good use of this particular grant funds to allow us to expand the amount of cultivation we are able to do there. We are also looking to cut down 4 trees. There are 4 large trees, 3 ash and 1 cherry, far end of the property that shade almost up to 2 acres. So it's preventing the amount of growth we can do at that end of the field as well. So.
It's just 4 trees, 3 of which are ash trees, which I think we've discussed.
I need to come down anyway.
They're going to come down one way or
Thanks for
another.
that.
It's a question of whether it's controlled or not. The other thing that Joanne didn't mention is, I think it was last year, they were looking to actually irrigate using water by drafting right off of the Farmington River. They went through conservation. There were some challenges associated with whether or not that needed to be approved or not. That process is becoming more and more complicated, so this is just a great solution where through this one-time grant, they're going to be able to build this asset. They still do have, assuming that it's approved and assuming that the grant is awarded, they still would be going through zoning for a site plan amendment. They would have to then also have the Farmington Valley Health District approve this well
Normally, the Health District does not approve wells where city water is available, but being that this would only be for irrigation, we feel that they might grant that application.
Correct. And I actually, Farmington Valley Health was out on Friday with the potential Spence well for the drilling site, and we walked the property. We looked at the location of where we wanted to put the well, where the pump house would go, and she felt very comfortable with the process, as well as Spence and being able to actually get water on that side.
And this well would only be used for irrigation. It is adjacent to our closed landfill. We do regularly test the water quality, the groundwater quality, as you know, owning a closed landfill. This is one of the requirements, but we certainly wouldn't want to use this as potable water. Not that there's any direct prohibition, but just as a matter of good risk management. The other thing is we would be asking the WPCA if we could pull the electricity needed for this small pump directly from the pump station, the WPCA pump station that's located on Wolcott Road.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, but I would just like to thank you for your ongoing commitment to providing even more produce to those with food insecurities in our community. And as the liaison to the Housing Authority, I have been witness to the amount of produce that you provide to those less fortunate and who are in need of additional sustenance, and it is a wonderful thing.
Thank you. We're excited about what's planned for this season. So once again, it'll be a great season.
Okay, any other questions? We good? All right. Is there a motion effective April 23rd, 2018, to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to issue a letter of support for the grant application being submitted by Gifts of Love to the Connecticut Department of Agriculture for the installation of a new well for irrigation?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. Item E is CROG is soliciting possible transportation projects. So these are projects that would receive state funding. Town staff reviewed a number of projects suitable for this grant, and they recommend a particular project which would be 5,000 linear foot sidewalk, basically connecting West Street to Henry James. What would you, so talk to me a little bit about why that project was chosen above others.
We looked at a couple things, both our needs for new infrastructure, projects that would fit into this grant application, and projects that would also score well within this grant application. The other thing that is important to note about this particular application, right now there's not necessarily funding for this program at the state level. The Capital Region is pushing forward to program out future years of the LOTSIP program. It's the local capital improvement program. It's the best mechanism that they have for providing towns with transportation infrastructure money. The reason that they want to continue programming it out, despite the problems that are having at the state level with the state transportation fund, is we believe, or they believe, that the state's going to rectify and correct their issues with the state transportation fund, and they don't want to be caught flat-footed and not have it out programmed into the years going forward. This would be looking at construction in 2020. Again, this is just shy of a mile of sidewalk. There's going to need to be some grading work, and you know, it's not the easiest section of roadway to put a sidewalk in, but if you can imagine now, it would connect West Street, all of that trail that connects up to the high school. Then from Henry James, it heads north along Firetown with the sidewalk. So it really builds a piece of connected infrastructure, which is part of why we think it's going to score well when it goes through the program. We would be looking at a $30,000 cost to the town for the surveying component of that, and the design would be done in-house. 100% of the construction funds would be provided by the LOCIP program if this was selected.
Any questions for Tom?
So just, this, I think this is one of the first times I've been through something like this. So we would not be budgeting, it would be coming out of an internal cost for the survey, correct? It wouldn't be something we'd be additionally budgeting for, or we would be budgeting for?
It would be budgeted during next year's budget cycle.
Okay, and then there's a chance that it wouldn't be accepted, correct, obviously?
A couple things. In the immediate phase, we need to submit the grant application, or we need to choose whether we are or not going to submit the grant application. We would know within probably 3 to 4 months if we are selected for the project.
Okay.
Then we would have to plan for that $30,000 expenditure during next year's budget cycle.
this is the point in the meeting where I start keeping a list of all the things we
I
spend
know.
money on
Yeah,
before we spend money.
Money on it, yeah, that's what I'm.
Well, it's just with the small cities grant, you have to pay the engineering fees and things up front, and whether or not you are selected for the project. So I'm just curious as to why on this one, it doesn't work that way.
Well, I think that the difference would be that they are not looking for fully engineered plans at the point that they're going to make an award recommendation. They're going to be looking at concept plans for award recommendation. Once we receive the award, then we would go through the survey process, then the engineering process.
Okay.
Sean?
So Tom, we pave 16 miles of roadway a year
Give or take.
for $1.3 million.
We pave about $130,000 per mile. So you get about 11 miles for that 1.3 million.
So you know where the question is going.
Yes, this is not repaving, this is not resurfacing. This is just when we talk about our paving.
Yep.
We talk about the fact that we are in the resurfacing
Yeah.
world where we are paying up to $12 a square yard. Where if we let our roads completely fall apart, we're in that $36 or $38 per square yard.
Okay.
This goes even farther beyond that in that we have to reshape, there might be some small retaining walls.
Okay.
This is starting from essentially nothing.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tom? All right. Is there a motion effective April 23rd, 2018, to submit a proposal and funding request to CROG under the LOTSIP Phase, am I pronouncing that correctly, by
Yes.
the way? Good. LOTSIP Phase 2 solicitation to fund the construction of approximately 5,000 linear feet of new sidewalk along Firetown Road and to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute the application documents.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there a motion to accept the LOTSIP Phase 2 solicitation funding, should it be awarded to the town, and to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute all documents related to the grant award?
So moved.
It's gonna be cement or
Second.
All in favor?
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
So can we do that now because we don't know where the money's coming from, or do we need to wait? I guess why are
Fair.
we're preemptively, and I should have asked this on a previous one, we're preemptively accepting something we haven't been
Yeah, so
given?
this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past.
Sure, sure. So my understanding from staff is that we've done it both ways here, that for quite some time, when we would do grant funding applications, that we would both ask for permission to apply for it, but then in the event that was awarded, simply authorize the CEO to execute the grant documents once it was awarded.
Okay.
More recently, we were doing it separately and waiting to officially determine if we were receiving the grant award.
Okay.
That has provided a bit of a timing issue, sometimes for staff in terms of moving the project forward and just depending on where the regular meeting schedule falls and when we receive notice of the grant award. So again, in reviewing this with staff, they were saying it was just a little more timely with the way we previously did it, which was why we were just providing language that if the grant is awarded, that I would have the authority just to execute the grant documents with the state.
Fair, I appreciate that clarification.
Sure.
So one thought on this one, I mean, most of the grants we apply for don't come with costs to the town, whereas this would. So I don't know if that,
I'm
Thank
fine
you.
going forward with that. It's because we still have to do the funding in the budget.
Right.
So we can apply for it, we can execute all the documents, and it's still got to be funded. Now presumably, we're agreeing to do that, but we still have to figure it out within our budget, the Board of Finance, et cetera, where it comes from.
And again, on this one, there's a reasonable chance
Yeah.
this may not
Yeah.
be awarded.
So I have no objection to this. I guess I was just looking at it just felt a little bit different, but I appreciate the explanation, so that makes sense to me.
so that was moved and seconded. Any further conversation? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. One more item, item F, under Selectmen actions. So with the change in government, Maria has proposed some minor changes to our ADA policy to designate the deputy town manager as the ADA compliance coordinator and to reflect a change of the chief executive officer position from the first selectman to the town manager. Anything else you would add that precipitated this?
Sure. So as part of our grant, our small cities grant, when we have a change in the CEO or our ADA coordinator, they just require us to update the policy. So again, just with the recent staffing transition and change in form of government, this is simply housekeeping.
Okay.
So this was previously just the first select person, not the Board of Selectmen?
Correct. So previously, the Director of Administrative Services served as the ADA coordinator, and then the first select person would be the person to execute the policy documents.
Okay.
Any conversation about any of these changes? Is there a motion effective April 23rd, 2018, to adopt the ADA notice and the municipal ADA grievance procedure as presented, and to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute the documents?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that passes. Moving on to appointments and resignations, is there a motion to appoint Elizabeth Peterson as a regular member of the Tourism Committee with an expiration date December 2nd, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Is there a motion to appoint Michael Tonka as a regular member of the Clean Energy Task Force with an expiration date December 2nd, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Is there a motion to appoint Robert Hagney as a temporary regular member to the Board of Assessment Appeals with an expiration date of September 30th, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And is there a motion to appoint Elaine Lang as the Simsbury Historical Society member of the Hometown Hero Selection Committee with an expiration date of December 2nd, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Anybody want to have any fun with Elaine?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. So a review of minutes, first from our regular meeting on April 9th. Any changes anyone would propose?
Beautiful as always.
Okay, what about our special meeting, April 13th? Okay, then
Even better.
those minutes stand as presented. Selectmen liaison and subcommittee reports, anything anyone wanted to bring forward?
I have two.
Yeah.
At the risk of Sean starting to talk.
Wow. Baby schedule.
The first is from the Aging and Disability Commission. Tomorrow evening, April 24th, they will present a program at the library given by a former probate judge to discuss guardianship and other legal issues with regard to family members and persons with disabilities. It should be a very informative program. All are welcome. Check the library website for further information. The Community for Care will be holding on May 9th a community book read. The book is called The Seventh Wish. The book is it's appropriate for young adults and I would say older school-age children. It's the story of a family with a family member with a heroin addiction and how it affects all the different family members. I finished reading it over the weekend. It was actually an excellent story, and we're hoping that this provides a mechanism for families to have a conversation about what that looks like when it happens. So I would encourage, the book is available at the library, so you can read it ahead. The week of May 16th is Prevention Week, and the Community for Care is holding several programs with regard to prevention. The first will be taped for SCTV, and it's on seniors and alcoholism. We will be having a Narcan training clinic at Eno. So if anyone has a family member or loved one that might cause them to have to learn to use and administer Narcan, we would welcome you to come and learn that valuable skill. There will be other information regarding Prevention Week available on the Social Services website.
Great. It sort of dawned on me as you were talking, a lot of these things are things that I would love to include in my first selectman / town manager's report. So if anyone has anything that you would like included in that, please pass it along to me, because these are great events that folks should know about. Yeah, Sean.
Just one item from the public safety side. This is my annual, please slow down and drive like you live in the neighborhood speech. We've already had a cyclist on, I believe yesterday, get hit on Route 10. I don't know the circumstances, but I believe the individual's all right. But remember, as the weather gets warmer, everybody's back outside again. Your friends and neighbors that you haven't seen in 5 or 6 months are walking around your neighborhood on their bikes. Their kids are running up and down the driveway. We all have kids or no kids, or we're a kid ourselves one day. So remember that we all need to slow down. We're going to get to work on time. It's going to be okay. We'll get to the store, but let's make sure that everybody's safe. And he's able to play in their yards, regardless of what street we live on, because, again, folks are excited to be outside, but as you've heard me say for a number of years, folks just simply forget that they're in a neighborhood, and driving too fast and not paying attention And most of the time, that's okay, but once in a while, it ends tragically, so let's make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thanks, Sean.
So.
Anybody else? Okay. So moving on to communications, is there any of those items that anyone wanted to bring up or discuss further? Okay. In that case, is there a motion to adjourn to executive session with Bob DiCrescenzo, Jesse Langer, Maria Capriola, Melissa Appleby, and Jamie Rabbit? Anybody else I'm missing? Okay.
Oh, the HTC meeting started at 7:30, so he won't be
Okay.
able to. Yeah, he won't
Good,
be able
yeah, I
to
was
join us.
thinking-
Thank you for double checking.
Concerning pending claims and litigation regarding Deepwater Wind appeal petition 1315.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn to executive session.
I should have let you talk if you want to for community therapy.
No, are you kidding? Go, girl.
It occurred to me as I was talking, like blurring through that.
No, it's great. Happy to have you do it.